Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. Rumors abound. Boxing insider Rick Glacier recently addressed rumors of ongoing talks for PBC to migrate over to ESPN in what could be the absence of Top Rank. According to Rick, rumors of PBC to ESPN are exaggerated. If there is any deal, ESPN would solely be a pay-per-view distributor of the PBC pay-per-view offerings, like what you see on Amazon. That is mostly what they do there. Very few of the fights they've done so far on Amazon have been non-pay-per-views. And according to Rick, all they'd be doing is taking that act from Amazon over to ESPN. PBC is not getting a boxing content rights deal like Top Rank has had for 8 years on ESPN. A little history. From 2015 to 2017, PBC stupidly paid for their airtime on ESPN. That was with the Waddle and Reed money. Then ESPN threw out PBC in favor of Top Rank and paid Top Rank for their content. That entire scenario cannot be ignored. It's not hard to understand what Ricky is saying. That if ESPN would have been interested in what PBC was offering way back when, they would have offered them the rights deal, but they didn't. So who's to say that they're not interested in what they're offering now? That depends on what you call interested. If all you're going to do is act as a hub, a distributor for their pay-per-view shows, without making an investment of your own, then you're not really all that interested. Like, Amazon isn't all that interested. Make no mistake. Amazon Prime has more than enough money to give the PBC the same kind of budget they were getting on Fox and Showtime. They've got the scratch. They just don't want to spend it. And it's been over a year since they struck that deal. So if they didn't invest already, it's likely because they're not going to. Now, why they're not going to? Use your imagination. I've heard similar rumors about ESPN perhaps picking up the PBC, though not to the same extent that Rick Glacier is saying. See, the rumor I heard was that ESPN wants to move away from commitments, like the one they just had with Top Rank. They want the wiggle room to do business with several promoters, the PBC among them. The way I heard it, you're talking about Top Rank, ESPN, and Golden Boy. All on the same platform, acting as a hub for most of the boxing happening in the United States. That's the way that I heard it. Some guy with a lot of money wants to bring them all together. That Top Rank may not be leaving ESPN after all, and that ESPN may not be leaving boxing after all. It may continue just under a different structure. Now, why would ESPN want to restructure how they do business in the sport of boxing? It's because, well, boxing as a business is quite unstable. You make a commitment to a promoter with no real assurances that you're going to get an ROI, that they're going to shell out quality content or a pay-per-view star. You just don't know because it's not an exact science. Think about the Times Square show and that proliferation of names that Turkey LL Sheik brought together. Teofimo, Devin, Ryan, some of the biggest names in American boxing right now, but look at how the card turned out. Nobody enjoyed it. Nobody liked it, in spite of it, on paper, looking like a quality bill. What this accents is the inherent instability that comes with boxing. Boxing as a business. It's not stable, especially now. Now, 8 years ago, when ESPN first made that commitment to Top Rank, boxing as a business seemed more profitable, the environment more fertile and lucrative, whereas 8 years later, in the United States, boxing is in decline. So if you're a broadcaster, if you're ESPN, you don't want to walk into a situation where you have to go down with the ship. No, you want the wiggle room to abandon ship if need be.
So then what are we talking about?
Dealing with promoters on a fight-by-fight basis without a commitment, not dissimilar from what we're hearing about Sky Sports in the UK. They don't want to be joined at the hip to anybody. They want to be able to look at an event, assess its value, and pay for that.
So some people are interpreting these rumors about PBC going to ESPN as some kind of gotcha moment. That ESPN is giving Top Rank the boot in place of PBC.
We don't know if that's the case.
Some folks are speaking way too soon, still in search of recompense for Al Heyman, who they view as their prodigal father. The entire angle they're coming at this at is, so many people have criticized Al Heyman's PBC for so long.
They wish to prove that Top Rank is no better and no worse than the PBC, as they find themselves in the exact same situation.
That's the point they're trying to make.
But Top Rank doesn't have to do all that much to come out better than the PBC did when Showtime gave them the boot. If all these rumors about Warner Discovery giving them a rights deal turn out to be true, and if what Bob Arum said about having upwards of 3 broadcast partners moving forward, if that turns out to be true, then they will have come out better from this than the PBC did when Showtime dropped them.
A lot better.
At its base, it's a false equivalency argument. You're still trying to save face for the PBC that only did 5 shows last year, and they ain't done that many this one. What are you even doing?
Speaking too soon, near as I can tell.
It's a fluid situation, and there's more than one rumor out there about what's going on behind the scenes. I don't actually view it as a bad thing if the PBC lands on ESPN, if it's alongside Top Rank and Golden Boy potentially. That could actually be a good thing, that you could get that much boxing on a platform as big as ESPN. I would call that value for money.
And because all these outfits would potentially be on the same platform, that opens the door for more fights between them, for them to do business. You've been hearing what Oscar said, what Bob has said, that they're going to do more business with the PBC moving forward. Maybe this is what they're talking about. Just in keeping with the theme of movers and shakers in the broadcast portion of the boxing space, Tom Loeffler's 360 Promotions to play integral part of future TKO plans. Isn't this what I told you?
Told you, he's been palling around with Dana White. They co-promote a fighter between them, and I could see Tom Loeffler being Dana White's point man.
Oh, yes.
TKO Boxing's maiden voyage is set to begin September 13th with the blockbuster event headlined by Canelo and Terence Crawford. UFC president and CEO Dana White is set to be the frontman promoting the event, which kicks off with press conferences Friday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and Sunday in New York at Fanatics Fest. Once Canelo Crawford concludes, TKO Boxing plans to stage 12 events per year for the next 5 years, including up to 4 mega matchups per year.
Mega matchups? With whose fighters? Are we talking about in-house fighters, or are we talking about situations like Canelo versus Crawford?
One particular player who will have a prime position shaping the future of TKO Boxing is promoter Tom Loeffler, who's handled the likes of Vitaly and Vladimir Klitschko and Gennady Golovkin since the turn of the century. Loeffler, the founder of 360 Promotions, was a first mover, linking up with White and UFC in 2022 when he struck a deal to stream his Hollywood Fight Nights boxing series on UFC Fight Pass. Another installment scheduled for Saturday, headlined by fast-rising Irish junior middleweight contender Callum Walsh, taking on Elias Espadas at Chumash Casino in Santa Ynez, California.
I've heard it said that TKO Boxing will essentially be UFC Fight Pass on steroids. UFC Fight Pass with a bigger budget, a bigger profile, but essentially that's what it's going to be, because remember, they plan on doing everything in-house. They don't plan on working with the alphabets or the other promoters in the sport of boxing. They want to form a biosphere.
Tom Loeffler was quoted as saying there were some big plans coming up in the future. I can't share much right now, but all of our fighters will be an integral part of future TKO plans. Callum Walsh will be a huge part of the future TKO plans on moving forward. We're really excited about that. Dana White is 100% committed to building boxing, and I support Dana 100%. The cross promotion the fighters are going to get is tremendous.
What do you envision?
Tommy is going to give Dana access to all of his 360 Promotions fighters that he has contracts with. That's the men, that's the women.
That's Callum Walsh, that's Iana Verduzco, that's Mizuki Hiruta.
Sergey Boachuk. Loeffler said TKO Boxing's blueprint will follow a similar path to UFC. The TKO boxing concept in general is why UFC is so popular, said Loeffler. When fans go to a UFC show, they know they are going to get some great fights. Sometimes the fans don't know the undercard fighters, but they are in tremendous matchups. That's what we've tried to model with our 360 promotion shows. I think that's what Dana is going to bring to the table: competitive and exciting fights for the fans. That's why there are very few undefeated fighters in the UFC. If you lose in the UFC, you can still come back in a big fight. And that's the mantra Dana wants to bring for boxing. Not exactly original. That's the way it was before the Floyd Mayweather era. But in the Mayweather era, so many boxing fans were brainwashed into thinking that if you don't have your O, you don't matter. We're coming out of that now.
Yeah, people are starting to wake up that unbeaten records aren't all they're made out to be. Sometimes a guy's unbeaten because he ain't fighting nobody.
Dana White has taken a liking to and supported Walsh in recent years, Tom Loeffler's fighter, attending his fights in LA and New York, and even promoting the Irishman's homecoming event last year on the grounds in Dublin. Walsh is also a frequent fixture at UFC and WWE events. I love Callum Walsh. White told the ring. I love his style. I love the fact that he's willing to take tough fights. And I just like the kid personally. As soon as I was introduced to him, promoting him is fun for me, and I am having fun doing it. From Walsh to Loeffler's other linchpin, Sergey Boachuk, many are looking to land a date on the Canelo vs. Crawford card as TKO Boxing gets underway. A lot of fighters want to get on that show, and if there is a way to get Callum and Sergey on the show, I'd love to do that, said Loeffler. But there isn't anything that has been finalized yet.
Now, Oscar De La Hoya, in his last installment of Clapback Thursday, suggested that TKO Boxing doesn't yet have a stable. They don't have any fighters.
I think he spoke too soon. Way too soon. Americans have a bad habit of doing that. I told you from the get-go, Dana's buddy-buddy with Tom, and Tom can be the point man that Dana needs while he endeavors into the boxing space. And his 360 Promotions fighters,
that might be the stable that TKO is comprised of at the start.
These are not big-name fighters or big-ticket sellers. They're good fighters, they are, but they're not all that expensive to where they're not going to be hung up on the TKO pay scale.
Because they already don't make that much. Hell, for some of them, they might get career-high purses boxing on TKO.
This doesn't have to be a bad thing for anybody, a bad thing for the fighters, a bad thing for the fans. This could be a change, a needed change within the boxing space because the conversation has grown stagnant over time.
Stale.
Always arguing about why this guy isn't fighting that guy. We need something different.
Shit is boring.
Oscar De La Hoya is only going out on the attack because he's never gotten along with Dana White. Moreover, he doesn't want someone new entering into the boxing space.
His job is hard enough as it is without new competition. New competition backed by a mover and a shaker in Turkey LL Sheik.
Yet another example of what I told you in my previous video, that Oscar is becoming more and more comfortable shading Turkey LL Sheik's efforts, whether it's Canelo versus Crawford or TKO Boxing.
Lines are being drawn in the sand.
Men's junior middleweight news, according to veteran boxing scribe Lance Pugmire. Story to come to boxing scene. IBF junior middleweight champion Bakram Murtazaliev is in talks to fight England's third-ranked contender Josh Kelly. And the bout could land on the September 13th Canelo versus Crawford card.
Or later on.
For those not aware, the highest-ranked contender via the IBF's ranked standings is America's own Erickson Lubin. And I remember Lubin expressing some interest in challenging Bakram for the red and gold belt, but as it stands, there don't seem to be any talks between Bakram and them.
And there is no order that I've heard of from the IBF ordering Bakram to fight Erickson.
This is the only news out there. After Josh Kelly's latest win, not but 1 or 2 weeks ago, the conversation immediately became about challenging Bakram Murtazaliev for the red and gold belt, and they've got some guts, I'll tell you. Josh Kelly is riding a 7-fight winning streak since having been stopped by David Evanesian way back there in February of 2021 in the welterweight division. He has since moved up to junior middle, fought 7 times and won 7 times, more recently earlier this month against Flavius Bia, who he stopped in the first round of a fight scheduled for 10. Sporting a professional record of 17 wins with 1 loss and 1 draw, 9 knockouts, having been knocked out at least once in 19 professional bouts, he kinda looks like Tom Cruise's little brother.
Yeah, sort of.
Former Olympian who I can't say is living up to the expectations set before him when he went pro. I remember the buzz around this kid around the time he debuted.
Yeah, that buzz is dissipated. He has since left Matchroom and paired up with Wasserman. I believe he's been fighting on Channel 5. That's a terrestrial network in the United Kingdom.
It's available in a lot of homes, but I can't say that that is translated into marquee value for Josh Kelly. Now, maybe with a big win over Bakram, things might change. Bakram Murtazaliev, who sports a professional record of 23 wins, no losses, no draws, 17 knockouts.
Hasn't been terribly busy since his signature win, his big knockout win over Tim Tszyu in a fight that Tim was favored to win. Bakram had other plans.
Now, if a sizable portion of the boxing community are still unfamiliar with this fighter that has everything to do with all the step-aside deals that he took to allow Jermel Charlo to unify the junior middleweight division. They had Bakram fighting on the non-televised portions of PBC shows, and that went on for a while, so a lot of people, they ain't really seen this guy. The only time they may have seen him was knocking out Tim Tszyu last year.
And what an introduction that was.
So now Josh Kelly wants to challenge him for what he's got. Josh Kelly, who's in his early 30s, and it's now or never. You ain't got all the time in the world. If you're gonna do something in the sport of boxing, you're running out of time to do it. Josh Kelly, a finesse, fence, and fiddle kind of fighter who I don't think has the firepower or the durability to win this fight. In terms of firepower, Josh, he's not really a knockout merchant per se. He's more of a boxer than a brawler, than a bruiser.
Bakram would be the bruiser. He'd be the puncher.
If they make this fight, it's just gonna be the David Evanesian fight all over again at a higher weight. That's how I see it. But I don't begrudge Josh for wanting his crack at the apple and rolling the dice. At some point, you have to.
They're talking about this landing on the undercard of Canelo versus Crawford, which would ensure that both fighters make good money, win or lose.
I think a better fight for that undercard would be Sergey Bohachuk versus Bakram Murtazaliev. He's ranked at number 5 in the IBF's rank standings, several spots behind Josh Kelly, but still, I think that would make for a better fight.
I think Sergey deserves this opportunity a bit more than Josh does.
Is it too taboo to have a Ukrainian fighter and a Russian fighter fighting each other in a boxing ring, given the conflict between those two nations? Is that asking too much? Maybe.
So here comes Josh.
I don't really mind it, to be honest, if it does land on that undercard. At minimum, what it ensures is that we may get a violent knockout on that undercard. We will be entertained. I don't imagine Josh Kelly can keep this guy off of him for 36 minutes.
No, I think Bakram stops him.